They say she cries like a baby, but when you answer, it's already too late. In this episode, I unearth the spectral legend of La Lechuza, the owl witch of Mexico and South Texan folklore. With wings wide as grief and eyes sharp as memory, La Lechuza becomes more than a myth. She becomes metaphor, a sovereign force of vengeance, clarity, and boundary enforcement. She flies not for flight, but for reckoning. This is a classic legend, a witch wronged, transformation, and the mimicry of innocence. But let's draw some parallels to modern breaches, emotional mimicry, false allies, and the cost of answering cries that aren't ours to soothe. In this way, La Lechuza becomes a symbol of spiritual correction. So, we understand that she doesn't ask for permission, but she does arrive when breach is ignored. La Lechuza in Mexican folklore is a legend of a shape-shifting witch who transforms herself into a monstrous owl. Having sold her soul to the devil in exchange for magical ability, she is often described to be some 7 feet tall with a 15-foot wingspan and the body of an owl with the face of a woman. Staying perched on the trees or flying through the sky after nightfall, she sweeps down to carry away whomever is crossing her path. And so if you hear a bird screech at night, it is considered to be a bad omen that La Lechuza is searching for her next meal. And some stories even claim that she will disguise her voice as a baby's cry while she waits outside your door, ready to attack. And so the legend of La Lechuza is one that every time people hear that nighttime call of an owl serves as both a cautionary tale and a reminder of revenge. This is a story that is well known in northern Mexico and South Texas, where a brief wave of hysteria surrounding one instance of the legend erupted in the 1970s. The story of La Lechuza usually goes like this. A man is walking home alone late at night, most likely drunk, when all of a sudden he hears wings rustling, and then he begins to see glowing eyes staring at him from a tree. Now, if you grew up in South Texas or northern Mexico, there's a good chance you've heard this legend. And the roots of the legend, according to many versions, begin with a woman who has been wronged. La Lechuza lived at the far end of a small town, which people normally classified as somewhere in the desert area of northern Mexico. She lived alone, and that made the townspeople especially suspicious of her. One season, a small child, a little boy, went missing from the town, and no one was able to find him. In this particular version of the legend, the woman is accused of being a witch responsible for the boy's disappearance. And for revenge, she makes a deal with the devil to come back as a shape-shifting owl. The story that many hear growing up as a cautionary tale is used as a form or method to discipline children, because they are often told if they're out late or when they shouldn't be, or they are causing any kind of trouble, that La Lechuza would find them and then swoop down, make a mess of their hair, and scratch them up with talons. And if they were small enough that she would lift them away and take them to do whatever evil plan that she had in mind. Some stories talk about people who didn't quite see La Lechuza, but experiencing something odd, being up late at night when they should have been asleep, watching TV when they hear dogs outside in the neighborhood. And they think nothing of it. Oh, they must be chasing a small animal that's going to get under the house or something of the sort. And so they just ignore it until one of the dogs yelp. And then they stumble to go see what's going on. Throwing the blinds open and suddenly hearing that, whoo, whoo, and immediately not thinking, that's a bird, but knowing that's an owl, yet feeling that it doesn't sound quite animal-like. It almost seems like a person imitating one. So this brings us to El Pájaro Gigante that terrorized South Texas. In the small rural town of Robstown, right outside Corpus Christi, the legend of La Lechuza is tied with another cryptid, one indelibly linked to the community's culture known as the Big Bird of Robstown, or El Pájaro Gigante de Robe. In 1975, people walking along county roads at night said they saw a huge monster bird swoop down on them. Some told the Corpus Christi Caller Times, which reported on the claims, that the creature was at least 2 feet tall, while others described it as reaching as high as 6 feet. But when it was reported that the creature had the face of a human, the connections to La Lechuza began. Soon sightings were reported in nearby Banquet and Alice. It became something of a wave of hysteria. But one that retained a sense of humor was the Robstonians, who began to embrace the cryptid. In the magazine La Lomita, which was part of the rising Chicano movement in the area, 25 theories were published about the bird, ranging from it being conjured up to scare people away from the new Familias Unidas organization to it being a form of justice finally arriving on the town. Their bird was also made into an adversary in an issue of the comic book Relámpago, created by Margarito Garza, who later served as Corpus Christi district judge. The comic featured protagonists credited as the first Mexican-American superhero. Musical groups were then caught in the moment. Tejana musician Wally Gonzalez released a song about the creature being seen all throughout South Texas, which was perhaps the most famous song that Robstonians still cite to this day. It comes from a group called Los Campeones de Raúl Ruiz, and it's called El Pájaro Gigante de Robe, which is available on YouTube. It's important to note that this is a bit of a humorous side of the culture that has kind of blossomed in Robstown, and it isn't unlike many other small towns that have embraced their cryptids. But there are aspects of the story that speak to deeper elements of La Lechuza folktale. El Pájaro Gigante has been described with a skeptical to have been conjured by those walking home after a night of drinking, a motive that Gonzalez Martin says is a particular aspect to the Lechuza legend. In a lot of the modern stories and sightings, La Lechuza goes after a particular kind of victim, specifically saying that she terrorizes men. And in this way, she's kind of like Dear Lady. So that's the cautionary and the revengeful against these, obviously, borrachos, drunk men that might be violent or possibly abusive to women and children. She particularly terrorizes men who find themselves walking alone, drunk on weekend nights, or drunk on a work night, coming home late, and possibly going home drunk. Men that are known to be involved in lascivious behavior or abusive, unkind, and cruel, who are out cheating on their spouses or abuse their partners and children. So this aspect of La Lechuza legend is one that interests many people because it reinforces the angry woman, vengeance archetype, and that gender role. So the woman who becomes La Lechuza is someone that was living a life in her community that isn't typical. And so in her non-typicalness, that scares people because of her independence. So on the one hand, the modern appearances of La Lechuza may seem to serve women and girls that have been wronged. That story creates a kind of hope for women and girls in the sense that justice will be served even if it is not through mainstream event. So this is a really interesting story. The idea of being othered because of other people's perception of you, the idea that a witch could be so powerful that she could shapeshift, and what she could do within that ability. Would that make her innately evil? And why would her shapeshifting ability be a bad thing? At the end of the day, it's about, her having this power, and if that power is going to be used for evil or bad. And a lot of this is discussed on the texasstandard.org. A particular author by the name of Sarah Osh and Raul Alonso did this on October 16th, 2023, about Texas cryptids and El Pájaro Gigante de Robé, the big bird of Robstown. So I thought that was very interesting. But more to that, since La Lechuza is a shape-shifting witch owl from Mexican and South Texas folklore, described as a large white owl with a human face that preys on victims, especially drunk men. It's interesting how her story was one where she was othered and accused, so that she felt that she had to resort to these types of hexing curses in order to ensure that justice prevailed, despite the situation that had her falsely accused in a very unjust society. So La Lechuza attributes its name to the Spanish word for barn owl, Lechuza, which is rampant in Mexico. As the tales have it, is a legendary creature described as a witch who can transform into an owl and only comes at night. It may sometimes whistle or screech annoyingly, but is mostly known as a creature that howls and can be considered a omen of something bad or unfortunate on its way to pass. It is considered a creepy bird for that speaky tale, and it continues to bring life to the myth and the legend of La Lechuza.